Hey guys, how's it going? Kripparrian here. Today I want to give you guys a Path of Exile 2 build guide on the build that I have been playing this season. It has been working out really well for me, and a lot of you guys had a lot of questions, and there are a lot of things to go over. I did make a build guide going over the two builds that I updated. They were my favorite ones from the previous season, and the build that I played this season is kind of a combination of the two. Give you guys a little bit of a demo. This is just kind of like almost a random spot in yesterday's stream. So this is Zesh tier 3. It's pretty easy. You just run, and I am swapping weapons in order to respawn and have my minions keep up with me. The minions are doing damage primarily with a gem called Infernal Legion, which causes them to take a bunch of damage. There are these zombies here, and I weapon swap in and out in order to reposition them and get them fully healed. So this is the hardest difficulty for Zesh. Zesh is not a hard boss, but it's a pretty good showcase of damage. I'm going to just pause here for a second. So the damage might look a little bit low compared to like other really endgame builds. Just bear in mind that this particular boss has 75 base fire resist, and pretty much 100% of my damage is fire. So this is like a worst case scenario for damage. And with that in mind, the damage is actually really good. It is maybe about 800,000 DPS against maxed out fire resist monsters, pretty much. And I basically decided to stay and tank all the mechanics with my face, because as you can see, I have 16,500 energy shield. Now I move around items back and forth a little bit, so it is not always 16,500, but it has been over 15,000 for quite a while now. Now the main question that I get, and we're going to go here in game, is where do I get this majestic scepter? So this is Act 3. Act 3. This is the first zone in Act 3, Sand-Swept Marsh. And we are going to get a specter called the Bog-Felled Commoner. Now, if you go along this swamp, you're going to see other Bog-Felled Commoners. And you're going to see that all of these Bog-Felled Commoners have a weapon in their hand, like they have an axe or something similar. Usually it's an axe. But the Bog-Felled Commoners you're looking for, it's actually a completely different monster. It has completely different stats. It has way lower attack, but it has way higher health, and they don't have a weapon in their hand. It's just in Path of Exile 2, they have this thing where monsters sometimes have the same name, the same skin, but they have a completely different stat line and come from different places. The ones that I use come from the tree mini-boss in that first zone in Act 3. It is this guy, Root Ridge. If you deal some damage to him, he will basically cast his own Bog-Felled Commoners that don't have weapons, and if you kill those, you will get the ones you are looking for. These specters are significantly higher health than the normal Bog-Felled Commoners. The normal Bog-Felled Commoners have pretty much absolutely no use in any build, but these have really high health. They actually have some of the highest health values in the game. Right now at skill gem level 30, they have 115, almost 116,000 on my character, and I have a lot of damage. I could still get more damage, but I'm starting to prioritize just survivability at this point. You can see these are my damage stats. I have 354 increased minion life and 256 increased minion damage. Normally you want these to be about even, because pretty much all of the damage you are dealing is from the Infernal Legion gem, which takes a percentage of their health, 30% in this case, sorry, 25%, they take 30%. They deal 25%, so a quarter of their health, and the more health they have, the higher base damage, and then it takes that base damage and you multiply it with your increased to minion damage. So you want the health and the increased damage to be about the same. Just bear in mind that this only shows your actual minion damage stat. It does not include things like affixes like allies in your presence deal 80% increased damage. It does not include allies in your presence deal 40% increased damage. It does not include gems that you can put on your auras, such as Upwelling. Your minions deal 50% increased damage while you are not on full mana, and we are in fact using 2 of those because you can use Upwelling 1 and Upwelling 2. So I have about another 200% minion damage on top of what you see there, and their damage is absolutely crazy. Now, I have a lot of other minions kind of for support, and if you do want to check out basically all that there is to this build, it is in the it's the new build, okay, just so it's not mistaken. I know I have other Infernalist builds on Mobalytics. This is the new Kripp's Infernal Legion Infernalist, okay? I'm going to quickly go over the main gem setups and important things for the build in this video, but if you want the details for every single gem, they are here. Just keep in mind that if you don't have sufficient stats, you can start removing some of the gems. Like for Raise Shield, I generally put them in the order of importance. Right now on my character, I'm only using Steadfast. I'm not using Knockback or Rage, but if you have extra strength, why not put them in there? It'll make the skill a little bit better. Primarily, we're just using the Scepter gem with the Bogfeld Commander. That is the main thing that we are using it for. A few tips on leveling and general gearing will also be here. Bear in mind the affix rolls are not exact. The highlighted stats and the stats that you see on the gear on Mobalytics are basically the main type of stats that you're looking for on gear. So you really should get a helmet with +2 all minion skills and some kind of energy shield. Okay, that's kind of how it's communicated. On a scepter, you want a Shrine Scepter. They're the ones that have a resist aura with some kind of allies in your presence deal damage, but you really want the +4 minion skills because minion skills also scale the health, and the health is very important. So there is a lot of information here on the build. I highly encourage you guys to check it out. Same thing for the passive tree. If you don't have as good ES gear, maybe focus on the ES nodes before the minion nodes, and if not, you will do fine. Now, to just go over a few things quickly in-game here. Again, for the Mobalytics guide, make sure to check out the link in the description below, and you can favorite it so you can keep track of it and go back to it when you need. Now, you want to have like one of each of the other minions, and I really like having just one, because when you have more than one, it kind of cascades their thing into like a number, okay? So I have 4 Bogfeld Commanders. Now the Bogfeld Commanders have so much health and survivability that they're not really going to die to damage, okay? But the other minions can die to damage. And every single minion that you use has Last Gasp. And Last Gasp is really important because if Last Gasp triggers, it means that they're dead, but they're not going to die for 4 more seconds. So if you see one of their health reaching 0, you weapon swap. And in weapon swapping, you unsummon them, and then when you resummon them, they go to full health. And this is obvious because you can see the Bogfeld Commander. If I swap, they go back to full health each time I do that. So that's how we're not triggering the revive timer. That's how there's no reason to get any kind of resurrection speed on your minions. Now, you used to be able to do this with your Infernal Hound. You can no longer do this with the Infernal Hound, which means the Infernal Hound needs full defensive gems. Meat Shield, Elemental Army, Last Gasp. I would actually use Brutus Brain, which makes him invulnerable to damage, if I had the Lineage Gem, which I do not. Okay, but that's why we're using 1 of each of the other minions. Not 2, 1, because I need to know when they are going to die. 1 Cleric, because it's really cheap, and he casts like a heal over time. Why not? We are using 1 Frost Mage just to chill a little bit. Honestly, this is the weakest one. If you don't have enough Spirit, you can use a Sniper. 1 Storm Mage. Storm Mage is pretty important because it gives you the shock. And the shock is very powerful because you can use with overcharge, so you get a 30% shock value, which is 30% increased damage taken. The Frostbomb, even a Frostbomb video, it gives you, in my case, it gives me 84% reduce reduction, so it's even stronger than the Elemental Weakness Curse. We dropped their resists. Unearth looks pretty optional. Yes, you could have another minion in here, but I really like Unearth. Unearth basically pulls up all the corpses and you get a bunch of temporary minions. Now, the Unearth is particularly good if you have the gigantic minion node, which is this one, Gigantic Following, because it is not just the minions that you pay a reservation for that are gigantic, it is all of them. And the Unearth can summon up to 26 bone constructs, and they're pretty big. So I usually use this skill when there are corpses that might be exploded, and I use the skill if there's tons of monsters around. Not because they do damage, but because they basically lock everything in place and it can't get to you. They're kind of like your body block skill. You can maybe try it without that, but I wouldn't exactly recommend it. So that is pretty much the baseline actual skills. For the minions, I use Convalescence, which is a skill that basically starts your energy shield regeneration. If you haven't gotten a break and your energy shield hasn't started regenerating yet, well, you basically use Convalescence to get it all up again. You can't use it when it's full, and you can use it twice if you use Second Wind, which also gives you life recovery, which is great because we are actually playing hybrid. We are not Chaos Inoculation. It allows you to put a second spot for upwelling, and with cooldown recovery and rapid casting and prolonged duration, it does a really good job. You might be thinking, why do we really need to use a Shrine Scepter? Because Shrine Scepters are really good. It acts as a way to get a bunch of supports for free. Now, people say this is a bug. Maybe it is. I reported this when the game first came out, and it has not really changed at all. If it is a bug, then the Resist Aura Scepters are just really crappy. So I am actually pretty convinced this is not a bug. This is probably intentional. But basically, the Shrine Scepters that have like Purity of Lightning, Purity of Fire, or Purity of Cold, doesn't matter which one you get, you can socket additional reservation gems in them that will not cost additional reservation. So what does this mean for you? Well, you get 50 mana regen, 50 damage, 2 life regen, which is important because bleed and poison do go to your life directly, and you do have some bypass damage to your energy shield. So vitality is very important, and cool-headed for less ignite duration on you. Now, damage over time, ignite, poison, and bleeding are the most important things to remove, because if you have one of those effects on you, it prevents your energy shield from regenerating. The regeneration time can be long, but we do invest quite a bit in energy shield. I played a build very similar to this on Titan in the previous season. Now, the Titan build is still as strong, but if you saw the differences in the minion nodes, they basically moved this cluster and came up with a new one here. And this is just further away from Titan. This cluster used to be here. So now you can still play this build on Titan, but you'd have to play at life. You can't really get enough ES nodes because there's too many travel nodes to get there. But that's what I played last season. So you can still do that. It just, you can't play that build right away. If you want to play a minion build start to finish, you can play this one, and it is arguably stronger. It is not stronger against many small hits, but it's not bad. I do have 1270 armors, not bad. I do actually take small hits pretty well, and that armor is coming from just the shield and the belt. That's it. Those are the two sources of armor, and I have like all defenses on my amulet and the selection from the interlude, 15%. So that's it. The main reason why I think this build is actually completely insane right now is the points that you get are just so incredibly efficient. There are few builds that are as efficient as this one. Because we use energy shield and minion damage and minion life and energy shield recovery stats, like this one, and we need like a little bit of like stun threshold, it's literally all here. Okay, there are almost no stat points in this build. There's almost none. And even if you want to get more energy shield, you have a few extra points there that are optional, or you can get more minion life there. If you need like a little bit more stats, that gives you 5 more life, right? So it's just an insanely efficient point build, and that's where the power comes through. It's not really something you think about when you like have like a build overall looking in front of you, but it is very significant. In terms of the gear, again, it is there, but there's lots of options. Like I'm using a Venter's Gamble because I got a pretty good one that can get a lot of rarity. A lot of corrupted belt mods are quite good. You might ideally want like the Abyss belt with 2 helmet sockets, so you can put like exposure effect and minion reservation efficiency. But again, it's not that important. Now, in order to get like the gem set up properly so you can actually swap, first off, you want to make sure you have a button that has the weapon swap that is convenient for you to use, because you'll be using it a lot. Now, I am double tapping it. So double tap, And that is really the only downside of the build. Instead of actually casting a skill, instead of casting like a fireball, you tap weapon swap. Tap weapon swap. Tap weapon swap. That's it. Okay, that's it. That's all we're really doing when we're going through a map. And against bosses, we just debuff them a little bit. So how do we make that happen? Well, when you get a skill, it's actually bugged with the Infernal Hound. You can't actually use it with a specific weapon. But when it comes to all of your other minions, the idea is that you put all of the minions on weapon set 1 or 2, but not on the other. Okay, so the Cleric is on 1, not on 2. The Bogfell Commander, 4 of them. Now the Infernal Legion, I get this question a lot, the Infernal Legion does not stack with itself. So ideally you have just as much damage with 1 Bogfell as you do with 4, but the idea is that if you have 4, you can see they're kind of waddling around and spread out. It's basically like a more area multiplier, and area is a really big factor to playing this in like a smooth experience. So I recommend you do get at least two Bogfell Commanders. Aim for 3, I would say. 4 is a little bit overkill, but hey, I got the spirit. And 0 on the other one. Very important. Now, you do need to have Convalescence on both weapon sets for it to actually work. Keep that in mind. Frost Mage, 1 and 0. Storm Mage, 1 and 0. Again, all of that is extremely important. And if you have that set up, when you press your weapon key once, it unsummons them. When you press it a second time, it resummons them. It resummons them exactly where your character is with full health every single time. There is an option. I see a lot of people using focuses, like you can get like a focus like this. I just have to divine it. +2 minion skills. So this is obviously more damage, but I have played this build a lot. I am currently level 97 in solo self-found. If you use a shield, the benefits are that you can block, you can active block in order to start regenerating your energy shield. A lot of the time, if you're heavy stunned, it doesn't really matter. So if you get heavy stunned while active blocking, it's not a big deal. Also, you have the shield charge skill, which is really good. Just make sure to have it at level 3. You can do shield charge, and from the dodge, at the end of the shield charge, you cancel the slow animation. You just hold it down and sprint. So you can just kind of go really fast, and if you are sprinting, you can see the specters kind of catch up every second or two. Basically, they try to stay on your screen. So if you do that throughout a map, you don't even need to weapon swap. You can just whiz around and sprint. And if you get knocked down, it doesn't even matter. Yes, you can weapon swap when you are heavy stunned. So if you're doing that and you get heavy stunned by a monster, you can double weapon swap to put the fire dudes on top of you, and a lot of the time the minions just like pounce on top of you and get burned down from your Bogfell commoners. Overall, this build is so much fun to play. I would say that the Titan version is like a tiny bit more fun to play than this one, just because it's fun to see mobs hit you for absolutely no damage with a lot of armor. But this build is way more comfortable against bosses, and if you're planning on doing like increasing difficulty abyssal maps, those are kind of like the top difficulty. I've been able to handle them deathless on like tier 8 and tier 9 so far, with some of the craziest, most juice maps I've ever seen. And full parties and Trade League are doing that on tier 7 maps. So it is very much one of the tankiest builds in the game. It's maybe not the fastest, it's one of the tankiest, and it is very high damage. If you add up those 3 things, it is overall one of the best builds you can play in Season 0.4. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the build guide. Once again, if you want more details, make sure to check out the link on Mobalytics below for the written form of the guide, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.